Hello, welcome back to our channel, Christ be known.
All right, so we're going to continue our study here on Romans chapter 11. If you missed part 1, it'll be linked in the description box so you can go back and watch that one as well. We're going to be starting in verse.
We're going to be versed in.
Verse 13, we're going through 24. And just a quick recap, 1 through 12, we see here where Israel has rejected God, which we know that story, but not all of Israel did. There was an elect that did not. They were the ones that accepted Jesus Christ, the grace of the gospel. And we also learned that because of the Israelites' rejection, God used the Gentiles, the rest of the people, by offering them salvation to provoke jealousy amongst the Israelites to try to bring them back. So we're going to pick up here in verse 13 and continue that thought. For I speak to you, Gentiles, inasmuch as I am an apostle to the Gentiles, I magnify my ministry, if by any means I may provoke to jealousy those who are my flesh and save some of them. For if their being cast away is the reconciling of the world, what will their acceptance be but life from the dead? For if the first fruit is holy, the lump is also holy. If the root is holy, so are the branches. And if some of the branches were broken off, and you, being a wild olive tree, were grafted in among them, and with them became a partaker of the root and fatness of the olive tree, do not boast against the branches. But if you do boast, remember that you do not support the root, but the root supports you. You will say then, branches were broken off that I might be grafted in. Well said. Because of unbelief, they were broken off, and you stand by faith. Do not be haughty, but fear. For if God did not spare the natural branches, he may not spare you either. Therefore consider the goodness and severity of God. On those who fell, severity, but towards you, goodness, if you continue in his goodness. Otherwise, you will be cut off. And they also, if they do not continue in unbelief, will be grafted in, for God is able to graft them in again. For if you were cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and were grafted contrary to nature into a cultivated olive tree, how much more will these who are natural branches be grafted into their own olive tree? I love the analogy, the tree analogy.
I mean, it just, as you're finishing verse 24, it just hits me that he's saying the exact same thing he said in the first part we were talking about. He just said it a completely different way. Talking about provoking them to jealousy to bring them back. Well, this is talking about bringing them back. It's just using a tree as an example instead of...
Yeah. Well, I like how he started off telling me, look, yes, I'm an apostle to you Gentiles. That's what I've been called to do. But I myself am an Israelite. Mm-hmm. And if by me being an apostle, you guys can provoke jealousy in some of my own people and bring them back, awesome. That's probably comforting to him when when he learned about God trying to use the Gentiles to provoke them. Because I can imagine when Paul was called, he was like, well, I've got my own people I need to go after. There's people of my own flesh who need to hear the gospel. And they go, but you want me to go after these other people? And I could just see whenever he came to that realization, it was kind of like, well, maybe I can kind of do both,
Well, I liken that to, the way that we think, about a lot of stuff nowadays is we think that the way that we see things or the path we think we're supposed to go is the way it's supposed to be.
Yep.
But God has this much larger picture that we have no idea about.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I'm telling you, just go do this. You'll see. Just trust me. Just go do this. I have a plan. Well, you got to get out of your own way first.
Yeah. Which is not something I'm very good at doing.
None of us are. It's one of the hard parts.
That it is.
I think it's important that he talks about verse 18. Remember that you do not support the root, but the root supports you. And I think you could take that and you could go multiple different ways with it. Clearly we're not supporting God. God is our support. God is our rock. He is our foundation. There's a lot of ways that you could apply that phrase. Really what it says, another thing it says to me is just, is be humble. It's not all about you. You're not the cornerstone. I'm not the cornerstone. Well, it's a reminder that we're fortunate to be in this thing.
Yes, completely. I mean, branches were broken off to make room for us, to allow us in. But yes, it's the root that supports us, and that's kind of like stay humble. And and when I first read this, and it's talking about boasting. Why would they? But then I could see people being like, "Ha, you got cut off. I'm in. You're not."
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And and it's like, no.
Yeah, you're God's people. You're not even in the thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and here I am.
Look at me. I'm not even an Israelite. I'm a Gentile, and I'm in this thing. Well, and verse 20 just re-emphasizes again faith. Because of unbelief, they were broken off, and you stand by faith. So it's faith that brought us into the game.
Yeah, you had Gentiles that I don't know. I mean, I would assume if you lived back then and you were a Gentile, you had to know about God. I mean, how could you not? I mean, if you're around the Israelites and stuff, you had to know about it.
I'm sure. I had to have known something was going on. I mean.
Because there was Gentiles that had faith, but yes, as soon as Paul, who is the main Gentile missionary, if you will, apostle, he starts bringing the message out, and man, the Gentile church just started growing. They just jumped all over it, and it was 100% by faith, because the Gentiles never went through an era of having to follow the law and bring sacrifices. So it was 100% by faith. I mean, from the get-go.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just marking
You're
marking
good.
into 20 and into 21, where it's just talking about don't be haughty, but fear. For if God did not spare the natural branches, He may not spare you either. I think it shows the frailty of the connection. And again, I don't know that it's God's. I don't necessarily think it's God's choosing that, I'm not going to spare them, I'm not going to spare you. I think it's more of our choice that we're running away from it. And so it's not giving Him the option to bless us and to do those things.
Yes, it's because of this statement right here.
I mean, you're basically, you're cutting yourself off.
If you continue in His goodness. Okay. Now, I would have to say, that's not talking about if you keep the law. That's if you stay on God's good side. It's all about, it's just all about your faith. It's about the relationship. You don't want to be the prodigal son. Because if you don't come back, then you're not in His goodness anymore.
Yeah, I mean, if you had to choose, being a prodigal is not bad because it means you came back.
Right.
The idea is to not astray and not come back.
Yeah.
I mean, as we've talked about, it's never too, as long as there's breath in your lungs, it's never too late to come back.
Yep.
But I don't know about you, but I don't have any idea when that last breath is going to be.
That's right.
I don't want to get to the point where I'm away. And maybe I still have a breath, but maybe I'm not of sound mind, or I can't talk. I can't make the effort to come back at that point.
Now that right there, if you continue in His goodness, it references 1 Corinthians 15:2.
Yep.
I did not read that the first time. 15:2 says, well, I'm going to go ahead and read 15:1 because it's a continuation of it. So 15:1 is, moreover, brethren, I declare to you the gospel, which I preached to you, which also you received, and in which you stand. Here's verse 2. By which also you are saved, if you hold fast that word which I preached to you. How do you stay in His goodness? Well, you hold fast to the gospel. You stay connected to the gospel. And I don't, connected is not even a good word. I'm trying to think of a different synonym for fast. When it says hold fast to the word, hold on to it. I mean, keep your faith in the gospel.
Bind it on your neck, bind it on your heart.
Yep. Otherwise, you'll be cut off, and And if they do not continue in unbelief, they'll be grafted back in, because God can do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a prodigal son.
Yes, in essence, Israel is going to be the ultimate prodigal.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then, I don't know if anybody's ever worried about this, but this also tells me, well, my goodness, if God made room for me, if he broke them off to make room for me, there's not going to be room for them to come back in. No, there will. It tells you right there.
Mm-hmm.
If you not being natural can be grafted in, how much more can the natural branch be grafted in? So
I mean, Israel will one day be grafted back into the tree.
Yep.
That occasion will be far better than, this was my word, the awesomeness of the Gentiles being grafted in.
Yes.
As far as application, I just, don't have a better than thou attitude. I mean, we've talked about this many times. And that goes back to the boasting in, in verse 18. Keep your ego in check, basically. Be thankful for where you are and what you have. And
be humble, be content, and hold fast to the gospel.
Because God can take away as easily as he gives.
Yes, he can.
We're not worthy and should be thankful every day.
Yes. What are your thoughts? Thoughts on what we read? Thoughts on how to apply it? Do you agree with what we just went through? It's okay if you don't. Maybe it said something different to you. So let us know.
No doubts that it probably did.
Yeah, let's get a conversation going. That's how we grow and how we learn, by having a conversation, having a discussion. With that, we invite you to make sure and check out part 3, the video to be coming out that will wrap up chapter 11. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up, like it. Subscribe to the channel if you want to. If you want to keep up with whenever videos are coming out, share the video.
Somebody else may benefit from it that we don't even know.
That's right.
As a reminder to ourselves, let our focus be that throughout this life, we live and die in a way that when we are thought of, it's Christ that is remembered. Christ be known.
That's right.
See you all next time.